Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhtaufik Enha. I am from PBI. Now I will answer the assignment 3. The question number 1 is, what do you know of the formulation stack and syntactical knowledge? My answer is, the formulation state is the activity when we create our prepared language production by selecting appropriate words and sentence structure combined to make meaningful speaks. Syntactical knowledge. Syntactical knowledge refers to a speaker's skill of putting the properties of language together, i.e. lexical and grammatical properties, which will convey his abstract concept in mind to be spoken in communication. Syntactical knowledge is ability speaker to put in some properties of language, say, lexical and grammatical properties, which will convey his concept in mind to be spoken or speak in communication. Next, number 2. What is the relationship between formulation stack and syntactical knowledge? Explain your answer. My answer is, we only can do formulation stack, creating and preparing language production when we as speaker have a skill and ability of putting the properties of language together via lexical and grammatical properties, which will convey our concept in our mind to be spoken in communication. This skill, namely syntactical knowledge, cause when we do not have a syntactical knowledge, we can or we don't do formulation stack. How we do formulation stack? How we creating and prepare language production when we do not have product? What will be selected when we do not have option, or let me say do not have knowledge? Number 3. What are different among lemma, lexeme, word, vocabulary, as well as entry? Explain your answer. My answer is, lemma is knowledge customize the words we have in mind that are relevant to their semantic or meaning. Lexemes, lexemes is knowledge selection of words that we already have in mind based on pragmatics or context consideration. Word, a unit of language that has meaning. Vocabulary, a collection of words in a particular language. Entry is a word or phrase in the dictionary along with an explanation of its meaning with additional explains in the form of word class, pronunciation, etymology. The question number 4. What do you know of grammatical encoding in the formulation stack? Explain your answer and give example. My answer is, grammatical encoding process using functional processing and positional processing. All sentence structure that represent concept or fact are ready for going through the next step, namely phonological encoding. Creating coherent sentence by using grammatical knowledge to express the message in mind is also known as grammatical encoding. Karudin 2021 in the disregard Garrett MF argued that grammatical encoding consists of two separate but interrelated processes, namely functional processing and positional processing. Number 5. What do you know of the articulation stack and phonological knowledge? My answer is, the articulation stack. The articulation stack refers to the act of pronouncing, a concept that produces a series of clear, easy to hear, and effective, easy to understand speeches. This stack is the stack when we do speaks, and to make sure we make a good articulation, we must have a phonological knowledge. Phonological knowledge. Fernandez and Kairos Helen Smith argued that phonological knowledge is very important because this is one of the grammatical properties that make it easier for us to determine the relevant sound unit to represent messages and how these sounds are combined to the understandable species on syllabus, word, phrase, and also sentence. Phonological knowledge is how our understanding can organize the words that exist in our brain and then represent in words that are easy to understand. The question number 6. what is the relationship between articulation stage and phonological knowledge? My answer is, if the articulation stage is the process of word that is in our brain with the aim of making articulation clear and easy to understand, then phonological knowledge is an ability where our brains arrange a series of sentences to be easy understood. So, to make a sentence that is easy to understand is to go through a process called the articulation stage by using an understanding or ability to process words called phonological knowledge. The question number 7, what is phonological role and what are its characteristics? My answer, phonological Phonological role is a formal way of expressing a systematic phonological or morphonological process or diachronic sounds change in language. They are used in generative phonology to capture sound, relate operation and computation the human brain performs when producing or comprehending spoken language. One, phonological roles describe how a speaker goes to the abstract representation stored in their brain to the actual sound they articulate when they speak. Here are some characteristics of phonological roles. Language, speci- language specificity. Language specificity. A phonological role that is present in one language may not be present in other languages or even in all dialects of a given language. Productivity. Phonological role applied to even to new words, untalked and unconscious. Speakers apply this role without being aware of it, and they acquire the role early in life without any explicit teaching. Number 8. What do you know of phonological encoding? Explain your answer. Phonological encoding is involved in any task that requires speech production, such as everyday conversation, translating from one language to another, picture naming, or reading aloud. It's important to note that the unit involved in phonological encoding, i.e. the proximate unit, is not universal but varies between languages. For instance, while the phenome segment is the proximate unit in English and Dutch and the other European languages, in Mandarin Chinese it is the atonal syllables, and in Japanese the mora. The last question, as a whole, can you explain the process of language production? My answer, language production refers to the process involved in creating and expressing meaning through language according to level. Language production contains four sequential steps. The first is conceptualization. The second, formulation, and the third, articulation, and the last, self-monitoring. First, we must conceptualize what we want to communicate. Second, we formulate this stroke into a linguistic plan. There, we implement the plan through the muscle in the speech system. Articulation of speech sound is the third and the very important step of the production. Once we have organized our dog in a linguistic plan, this information must be sent from the brain to the muscle in the speech system so that they can then execute the necessary movements and produce the desired sounds. That's all for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.